Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. Nah, just kidding. I had to go for it. This is Jar Assistant Gamer. I want to talk about part 2 of the whole hit point situation. And basically, I'll go ahead and put the numbers back up here I have them last time. First of all, I just want to say thanks to everyone who participated in the Arena Commander forums and the posts related to this for their information and confirmation of a lot of what I thought. Thank you, Tazius, for the links to the sheets. It really does show me here that there is some wild discrepancies. Looking at them right now, I mean, when you can look at a ship that weighs 13,500 like the Mustang and it's got 6,600 hit points. But you look at another ship that weighs 18,500 and it's got 3325. That's the difference between the Avenger and the Mustang. To me, it shows that there's a real lack of consistency there. So thanks for that data. Thanks for kind of verifying what I was feeling about a lot of things on that. So let's go ahead and jump into the next reason, the next part of why I want to talk about hit points. Now, for starters, when I say hit points, I'm not being indicative of the health of the entire ship. I'm using hit points and the 33% of the mass just as a throwaway number, just as a balanced number, just to give you an example of what the health of the skin of the ship is. We're not dealing with the internals, we're not dealing with all the subsystems, and we're just dealing with finding out basically by overlaying a grid across the hull. Say if you create a grid that is, let's just say 1 foot by 1 foot, and you'll overlay that grid over the entire ship, and two ships that weigh, say, 20,000 kilograms or whatever. And ship A is a compact fighter, ship B is a transport ship. And ship B, because of the way it's constructed, the transport ship is actually a bulkier vessel than, say, the fighter is. And when you lay out that grid over the skin of the ship, what you end up with is the box. Let's say, for make it easy, the transport ship has twice as much surface area as the fighter. Therefore, each box on that grid is going to have half the effective hit points within that grid for destroying the skin or penetrating into the internals at that particular point on the ship. Now, one thing I do want to emphasize when I'm dealing with a system like this is that the damage that I'm indicating here, when I say it's only indicative of how much it takes to put a hole into the ship, means that once you've drilled a hole into the ship, you start damaging subsystems. But if there's nothing there, if there's nothing to hit after you put a hole into it, the shot will continue on through. Some damage will be lost into the infinite space, or maybe it'll go through from the outside and hit something on the inside, like a passenger area, or maybe it'll just go on through. You've got a clean through and through hole, and shot goes right through, no damage whatsoever because there's nothing there to damage. So once again, this is just about the skin of the ship and not about the internals when I'm talking about the initial hit points. Individual components that are behind the skin of the ship will obviously have their own hit points, their own resistances, or however they're made, and that comes into effect later. But that's not something that I'm overly concerned with at this moment. I'm just dealing right now with just the skin. Now, of course, I'm not dealing with the ship construction materials, if they're a more dense material, or if the ship has armor that's built as default in the ship, or a blade of armor. I'm also not dealing with the inevitable ballistic systems, dealing with angles that they mentioned as well. For now, all things being equal, we're just dealing with the hit points as they stand. So now that you've established a baseline, now you can move into weaponry. And because it's important that when you're defining what weapons do or how hard they hit, that you have an idea or a concept that, for example, I want this size 2 weapon to be able to take this long to punch clean through a ship if it was hitting this many seconds. Well, if you know the ship that you're aiming for, if you know the weapon you're aiming for, its fire rate, you can determine the value of every shot. If you want to have a weapon that is a slower firing weapon that will have more effective penetration, then you want to say, okay, I want the same DPS as the fast firing weapon, but I want it all in one chunk. And because you know the value of the skin on the ship, how much it's going to take to penetrate that one point, the rest of the damage, just say you have a weapon that does 100 damage when you fire, and the skin of the ship absorbs 50, and after that you've done 50 damage to the internal. So what you've done is you've created this distinction between your weapon types, where the fast rapid fire gun will mar the surface of a ship during combat in a lot of different places. The bigger hit gun will, when it hits, won't mar all over the ship, but whatever it hits, it might just go straight through. And that helps create some differentiation between weapons as well. See, I'm a firm belief that weapons of the same scale, like for example size 2s or size 1s, should all do the same effective DPS. Like if they're all hitting one big wall and firing continuously with no heat and no energy limitations, that they should all do the exact same damage over a fixed period of time. And where the differentiation comes in is from, for example, let's say energy weapons always do 100% damage to shields, and to hull they do 25%. That's just, I know it might be lowball to some people, but that's just a number. I'm just making it up. Don't worry about it. Then you have weapons out there. You have other energy weapons that say only do 75% damage to shields, and they do 50% damage to hull. So you create these variances not only in how hard, how fast the weapon hits a ship, but also the variance of how the damage affects the ship entirely. So you may want something that does 125% damage, so to speak. It just does shields, but the second the shields are down, it does nothing. So think of your ion gun or something like that. So there's all these different variations you can come up with, but all the weapons of the same class do the same DPS, but their effects, because of either their burst or their rapid fire, and the variation of how much they go into the hull or how much they go into it, taking off the shields, you can create a wide assortment of different customizable weapon types without actually needing to reinvent the wheel. The same thing goes with physical weapons. You can have different ammo loadouts, and we already do to a degree. They're in the game, and which is great. And the type of ammo you choose may be more effective on shields or more effective on hull, or whatever the case may be. Different effects that will also allow the customization into the player's preferred playstyle as well. So the reason I'm starting once again with all weapons of the same size do the same DPS is because it's a good balancing point. From there you can make adjustments and get things to where you want to be. But once again, like even with ship hit points, as I was talking about, it's always good to have a fixed base value or a base system that allows you to go ahead and create that flexibility and build around it. Now the next section I'm going to be going into is the defenses of the ship, your shields, your armor, your blade of armor. And as you can see, I'm kind of building things out from the core, from the root base materials it took to put into the ship, and kind of going out from there. And to me, that's a very sound way to build all your systems. You have your hull, then you have the weapons that attach to the hull, and now you're going to have the shields and armor that are attached to the hull. As far as the order goes, weapons and the armor is debatable which one's closer, but for these purposes, the shields are sticking out further than even the weapons, so I'm going to go that route. Alright guys, thanks for listening. I'll pick this up here next time.